Are you ready for the big reveal? Oh wait, that's not the reveal I'm here for. So have you been wondering about my entry path? Like, are we working on it? Are we ever gonna finish it? What's it gonna look like? Well, you've come to the right place. Yes, there's another makeover in town, but we're here to talk about my entry path. So this is actually part 3, I guess you could say, in a series. It started several months back with a video asking for opinions on how I should redesign my entry path. I had one, but it wasn't very impressive. So I was looking for opinions on how to redo it. My second video was more recent. In fact, it was the last video that I've released, and it's been a while. It's been a minute since I've posted a video. I think that's how it's going to be going forward. I don't have a lot of time right now, but here I am, and this is the final update, and it's going to show a lot of the work that's taken place in the last month or so. I hope you enjoy it. So I thank you so much for checking out my video. Enjoy. So I'm going to start out with a little raking and grading. I'm just going to level it to sight by eye. And I might pull the level out just to check it, because I want to make sure that we don't have pulling in the middle. I want it to grade down to the sides of the walkway so that the water can run down into our plant materials. It already has a bit of a grade going toward the sidewalk. The very center is where I'll start grading it back down again toward the existing concrete pathway from the driveway. Still finding Mexican pebbles as I go. I'm also still finding big clumps of the St. Augustine grass and the roots. Can you see that? The squirrels have been busy too. Is it the kind of progress I'd have if I had a professional installing it? Oh, probably not, because I'm just me, just one middle-aged woman out here working on her own, and with the help of my hubby and his muscles. I'm about to get ready to start work on this pathway again, and it's been 2 days because I had a lot to do on the non-landscaping front. We had a big citywide paper shredding event, and I was going through old documents and pulling everything I could to get it taken over to the city today. So anyway, I'm gonna flip the camera around and show you where I'm at. I've got the tamper out, and I'm trying to level up the center of the walkway. I have every gardener in the neighborhood out making noise today, so we'll do our best. We'll do our best to get the footage. You can see that it's pretty level. I can see that it rises here. I'm gonna keep straightening out tamping, and I'm gonna bring a board out and drag the board across to try to get it as straight and smooth as possible. Well, it's later in the day, and I'm trying to wrap up the leveling part. If I can just get that done today, then what I'll do is come in tomorrow and start laying out the fabric. Everything's taking way longer than I expected, but isn't that how it always goes? Okay, the light is quickly fading, but I thought I'd capture just a little bit of where I'm ending. And I just carved out the final shape down here. I didn't want to lose my line, so I went ahead and took my straight edge shovel and just separated the part that's not going to be the path so that I could see where the trench would be for the new plants. And there's so many runners or whatever they are still in this soil, so I want to get as much of it. And Mexican pebbles. I need to get all that out of here, but I've made a lot of progress until this last, I guess, I don't know, 5th of the path. The rest of it is pretty much tamped down, more or less level. I'm not looking for a perfect level. Won't get into why we've got a mix and match here on the edging, but just know that it's not going to show, so it's not really an issue. So the first step tomorrow is landscape fabric, and then hopefully we'll be putting pavers down tomorrow, stepping stones, and start the gravel process. I need to have this off of my to-do list because weekend after next we have a big yard sale. There'll be less lawn to put our stuff onto, but it'll be a good thing. So it's Saturday morning and I forgot to set up the tripod, but what I'm doing is finishing off this last section near the sidewalk. My husband removed the large stones he had placed here. He kept thinking we needed kind of a step up here. I'm convincing him that a grade will be better. So that's my job today, is to grade this last bit, but I really couldn't do it with that stone in place or with the gravel that he had laid here. So I've pulled most of the gravel out, and then he was telling me that he would really like about a 3-inch trench here. It's a great idea because what he wants to do is fill this completely with gravel and to keep it from washing dirt off onto the sidewalk. So having it at a lower elevation than the sidewalk will help with that, keep the gravel in place, and keep our walkway where we want it. So what you see me picking out of the dirt a lot of times are these. This is a large one, but to me these are almost like planting a seed of that nasty grass, because this, even though it looks dead, will, if it gets the right conditions, namely water and some sun, it'll start growing. And I don't know at what point they're actually fertile. That's not the word I want. Where they have a germination potential. But I try to catch stuff even that looks like this. Or, I don't have any in here right now. There's some that kind of look like, what they remind me of is like a skeleton or a bone here. So you could see on the edge of that, if this were all broken off. When I see that, to me that's almost like a tuber or a rhizome that can take root and grow. So if I see anything that looks remotely like that, I pull it out. I found one. Doesn't that look like a bone? They always look like hand or finger bones to me. But as dried out as this is, I believe that has the potential to turn into new grass. So before I move on to the portion where I put the landscape fabric, I just wanted to address that really quickly. I had a viewer ask me about that. You know who you are. And I wanted to clarify that I don't use landscape fabric very often. I'm not a big fan, but it does have its uses. So one thing I wanted to point out is that the reason I'm using it I'm using it is because it's a low traffic area, and it's an area that would be kind of hard to weed, but it is a permeable material. And so that was important to me. It's going to be only in the area where the stepping stones are, and it's high quality landscape fabric. If you've ever gone the cheap route and bought that black stuff, you know what I'm talking about. Don't do it. It just, it'll be fine for a little while, but then it starts to disintegrate, but it doesn't really. It won't decompose, it won't return to the earth. It just shreds and starts coming up and looks ugly and is a nightmare. The other reason I wanted to use it in this area is, let's say someday this path needs to be removed. It'll be a whole lot easier to pull that gravel up if it's been placed on top of the landscaping fabric. So I bought the best I could afford at the local box store. I think you can go even to higher grades, higher qualities, if you're willing to buy from, I guess, a wholesaler that handles landscape stuff, or if you go online. But this was the highest grade I could buy at the box store. So here we go. There's the kangaroo's paw, divided and put in place. Kind of put them at the widest spot at that opening to the entryway. And the plan is to put bulbs and other whatever there and then work my way back. Just a quick peek at how we're doing on the planting. I've got the little bit of the south side done, maybe about halfway. So there's lavender here, daylilies, some of my perennial flax, although I don't know if that one's gonna make it. I need to get this all planted out by, let's see, today is Friday. I need to get it done by tomorrow because tomorrow we have someone coming to take the rest of the gravel, or as much as they want. So I need to see how much of it I need. And this all needs to be cleared anyway by next weekend because we're having a yard sale. Hopefully the next video will be a lot more further along with the planting. Well, it's mostly planted out. I had a lot of action here in our driveway and could not record yesterday. We had a friend come and take a lot of the gravel and we were visiting, so it wasn't the kind of day that makes for good video. I'm just going to do a little update without the blow-by-blow planting. So the only thing that's not in the ground is this little purslane, I think it's called, another clearance plant. So I'm still trying to raise the level of the soil to the height of the edging on the sides, or close to, so that I can finish this off. Our friend left us what we all jointly thought would be a sufficient amount, and then whatever we don't use, they're going to come and pick up. And in case I didn't mention it before, this little leucantha, I decided that none of the areas in the border are wide enough for it because we didn't notch this side out as I had intended. A little lack of communication. So I'm still planning to remove some grass in here if I get the time and plant the leucantha right there in the middle. Okay, here's another little peek. I've got the front sort of done. This is not how I would have chosen to do this. I would have finished papering and mulching all the way to the other end, and then I would have started to bring gravel out. But I have a yard sale this weekend. We always set up tables on our driveway here. You can see that I still have gravel on the driveway, which is very dangerous. It's slippery. So my goal was to get at least the gravel, you know, that's on the driveway off. And so I thought if I got this started, then I would be able to pull at least that much gravel off. But time keeps me from finishing it. Time and materials. I'm pretty much out of cedar mulch. I have a half or a third of a bag left. So I need to go to the home improvement store, and I don't have time to do that either. But you get a feel for what it's gonna look like. I did bring one wheelbarrow of gravel over. I think I need to put a rock right here because I don't like the way that edging is looking, but a rock would probably camouflage it. The gravel at the sidewalk end is intentional. We dug a trench there so that the water could drain there instead of pouring out onto the sidewalk. And there's also a big pipe from a previous irrigation system that we could not remove. So that seemed like the best way to handle this end, especially since it is on a considerable slope. It does slope down on this side quite a bit. It slopes a little bit from that middle point toward the front of the house, but not near as much as it slopes here. And in fact, it's a gradual slope till you get right about there, and then it's kind of a fast slope. That was why my husband was worried about having like a step here. Our compromise was to use this very long piece as kind of a threshold, or a, if you will, a stair. And we stabilized it underneath with bricks and pavers, so it's not moving at all. And then I shoveled some of the gravel underneath it to help give it even more of a surface to sit on. None of the plants are really failing. I put the purslane in today. It is purslane. I split it because it had a natural place to split it. I don't know too much about it. I've never grown it, but it reminds me of a succulent, so I have a feeling it's very hardy. And other than that, I put a lot of bulbs in here, but they were the cheap ones from Aldi. So I'm not too optimistic any of them are going to come up, but that won't upset me if they don't. The basket was very inexpensive, and I have paper whites that were here already that I've transplanted, and I transplanted more paper whites behind the kangaroo's paw to where that little marker is. So there's a lot of paper whites in here. Same thing on this side, a bunch of paper whites back here. So between the marker and the society garlic, there's nothing planted, and that's on both sides. So it's a bigger expanse on this side. So I have room to do whatever I would like. And then we've got the society garlic, and we've got some more paper white bulbs right past the society garlic. And then I have the Mexican sage. And wherever there's a stake coming up, I've planted a hardy geranium. It's gonna be a surprise when it all comes up, because I really don't know what any of these will look like together. But that's okay. I trust that they'll look good. And here's another little update. Again, I am doing this in an odd way, completing it for about, I don't know, a third, and the other 2/3 not done, which is kind of silly, but there's a method to my madness. Need to get rid of that pile. Therefore, doing this out of order. But here's what I've got so far. I covered up or camouflaged the edging here with the big boulder. And then I'm using boulders as an edging because the level drops off considerably from the path to the planting area. And, you know, some could say I should have put the path down lower, and I would agree with that. But we were up against some tight deadlines, and this is what it is. So, and I do like the way the river rock looks, and had always intended to use river rock. Maybe not so solidly, maybe I was going to scatter them more, but I'm okay with it. So you can see that we've put the gravel in. We have added river rock and Mexican pebbles to keep the gravel out of the mulch to the degree possible. I mean, that's not completely 100% preventable, but there's some areas where there's a deep drop, like right there. So I'm tending to want to pull the gravel away and put another couple of big rocks here, just to kind of keep the separation between the gravel and the mulch. But I really like how this is looking. I'm going to back up so you can get a better view. Well, I do have the sun in my face. It's evening, but look at that. Isn't that going to look fantastic when it's completely done? I can't wait. But here's where we're at. I did do a video update that showed this lower half or lower third done. And I'm not completely done yet, but I have completed the newspaper layering on both sides of the walkway with an idea of, you know, keeping weeds at bay. And I have added a little bit of soil, topsoil, to raise the height of the planting areas, because they were planted low intentionally, but they were really low. So as I got back here, I did remedy that. You'll see the mulch is piled up nice and high, and it's not quite level with the top of the stepping stones, but it's pretty high. So where I'm at is I'm placing these little, I call them Mexican pebbles, but I think they're little, just smaller river rocks. But I'm placing them at intervals, and I may just, instead of dotting them, I may just do the entire border or edge. The thing was, I wasn't sure if I was gonna have enough. And there's still quite a few here, so I'm probably gonna be okay to line both sides. I had such mixed feelings when I would dig those up in this path, because digging them up seemed to never end. It seemed like we were just mining for those pebbles. But I was happy to find them because it meant that it was another material that I wasn't going to have to buy. Funny story, I kept this large circular aggregate stone just because it was a nod to the old path. And I thought it would kind of integrate well with all those little pebbles, those little river rocks. And I was a little short on the natural stone pieces, so I thought it would help me in that way too. I almost lost this one. Yes, indeed. We had piled up all the leftovers, the ones that we had pulled out of the path, out under one of our trees. And when we had our yard sale, you can see all that brown area. That was where they were piled up. And when we had our yard sale, someone came along and asked if we were selling them. And I said, you know what? We are not. You can have them. Take them. Just help yourself. I said, we've done a new path and we don't need them. I'm just going to save one as, you know, a memory. Well, it was a woman. She called her husband. He showed up with a truck, and another guy and him started loading it up like crazy, and they came out and yanked this one out. I don't even understand how that's possible, how you can look at this path that's in progress and not realize that this is intentionally placed and is not part of a pile off in another section of the yard. And I was really busy with the yard sale, so they might have driven right off with it, except for the fact that the wife saw him do it and said, no, not that one. I guess he just went into automatic pilot mode, muscle man mode. He knew what his job was, and he was just gonna do it like a robot. Okay, the sun is quickly setting, but just another look at how far I've come. I'm almost done with the center aggregate. I call this the center, but it's actually a little further toward the house than the street, but it's approximately the center. So I'm hoping to get just all the area around this big, large, round stone done tonight, and then I'll finish up the tiny little bit that's left tomorrow, or very soon, hopefully tomorrow. Well, it is the next morning and I am nearly done. I've got this one little patch. I actually came in with a little gravel under this stepping stone, the welcome. I don't know if you can make it out. It says welcome. We bought that when we first moved into this house. It's a cheap little stepping stone, but it's very thin, and so I had to raise up the level there so that it could be at least near to where the level of the others are. But here's where we're at. I guess this is a bit premature since I'm so close to being done. I should have just waited for the big reveal, but just a sneak. So filling between these pavers and bricks is a little bit of a fussy job because there is not a consistent height because of the different materials being different thicknesses and because the area slopes. So what I'm doing in some cases is taking very, very small shovelfuls and just finessing in the stones. I think traditionally you just pour it all down the middle and then push it off on the sides, but I really didn't feel like that was the way I wanted to do this. And in some cases, like this stone, I don't know if you can see, it's a little bit it's got a little slope here. So in some cases, I'm actually covering a bit of that just to make it a little more level with whatever's adjacent. In this case, a little brick. Oops, but see, that seems to work a little better. My goal isn't to have a perfect pathway. My goal is to just have it look the way I want it to look, and then we will edit as we go. We may need to add gravel as time goes on. I follow Linda Botter. If any of you are following her, you know she's got a lot of gravel in her landscape, and she mentions in several of her videos that she has to periodically refresh the gravel because it gets displaced and it just seems to disappear. I'm sure it's breaking down too, becoming more sand-like. This is my little technique. The little bit of finessing, and then there's also debris that has worked its way into the pile. You can see right there I've got these little clove roots, and I've just been trying to pull them out wherever I can. I don't know that this could actually grow into anything, but I don't want to take the chance. The cloves are actually growing in the gravel pile, so that tells me they don't need soil or they don't need much of it. The other thing I'm doing when I shovel it in sometimes is I'm trying to get it to go under the pavers, and sometimes I lift them slightly if I need to make the gravel be a little bit more of a stabilizing aspect, part of the path. It's not how a professional would probably do it, I'm guessing. I think they probably have different techniques that are not quite so figure it out as you go. But this is working for me. Here's another example of me just trying to get it a little bit under an edge, because these natural stones, they're not perfectly flat. Some of them have more flatness than others, but typically they are different shapes and different crags, and I'm just trying to work with them. So that's why this is a fussy job for me, and it does require some patience because I want it the way I want it. The other thing I find myself doing is stepping on the gravel to kind of tamp it down. It's not like DG or any kind of interlocking stone where it'll form any kind of a real serious base, but it does seem to solidify somewhat if I step on it. And I do want it to be so that if you're not on an actual stepping stone, that you will not, you know, totally lose your balance or sink into the gravel. I want it to be tamped down a little bit, so I'm also doing that as I go. I was just bemoaning that this hardy geranium had died, but I don't know if you can see, it is absolutely not dead. There's some growth right there, so yippee. Now, if I can only find what happened to the one that was by this little stake. It's under there somewhere. Maybe it'll rear its little head. Ah, very similar to the satisfaction of putting in the last puzzle piece when you're doing a big jigsaw. Yes. Well, because I want to videotape, every gardener in the neighborhood is running their chainsaws. But here we are, the final reveal. I even hosed off the stones to make everything look nice and clean, although that won't last long. So these areas down at the end are planted out, not just with what you can see. And thankfully these kangaroo paws have lived. I wasn't sure if they would because it was one big plant that I split. But I also have a lot of bulbs in here, none of which seem to be coming up. And I will honestly be very surprised if they do come up. They were very cheap. Of course, the tall ones, these bulbs here, I knew those were going to come up because they were already up when I planted them. They're my paper whites. I just transplanted them. So moving back, I do have more paper whites because I had them naturalize all over my yard. So I've got some of them coming up, as you can see. Oh, I shouldn't walk on this path. I'm going to get it all dirty. I came back through after adding all the gravel and added extra little river rock or whatever these smaller stones are in the areas that seem to be the most precipitous, the ones that were most like a cliff. And also my idea always had been to have them at their highest volume near this aggregate stone as a kind of a reflection of the stones that are in there. So I may still fuss with those. There's editing to come, I'm sure. But here's some more bulbs coming up, and then I've got Society garlic back here. I also may bring some more of these larger boulders, stones in, because it gets kind of sparse as you go toward the end. So the Mexican sage is really starting to leaf out, and I have a hardy geranium right here and another little bulb coming up. I'm going to have to refer to an earlier video because I did not mark any of my hardy geraniums. So there's another hardy geranium down there. The marker is just to show me where it was. I did not mark it with what type it is. So I'm gonna have to, again, look these up. There's one over there. And then I've got my perennial flax, the one that I knew for sure was living, the one that I wasn't sure, which is now giving me a little bit of growth. And on this side, 3, but again, 1 looking pretty sad, actually 2 looking pretty sad, and then 1 looking okay. So I'm probably gonna transplant some that I have in another area. It seems that we had a little accident with one of these lilies, and we've come to the realization that I need to put some more hose guides, which thankfully I have more. I bought a whole bunch of them, I think 3 or 4 boxes on OfferUp quite a while back. So I'm going to bring some more hose guides out here so that we don't destroy the pathway plants while they're still in their infancy. So there's a lot of room here, as you can see, for if I want things to look more dense, to interplant. I don't know that I'll do that because time's an issue for me right now, more so than normal. And honestly, these probably are all placed about where they need to be for their maturity. So I don't know that I want to overcrowd it, because then I will run into issues such as the ones I'm having over in the office bed, where things are just growing too big. And I knew that would happen. I'm not saying that that was a surprise to me, but I did not expect that my time would be so limited and that I would have a hard time getting in there and editing. I intentionally planted back there with a fullness because I wanted the gratification of that. And I knew that it would be easy to divide the plants. But now that's my dilemma. Do I have time to divide them? Well, I don't want to do that here in the walkway. That's the point. But here it is. The full reveal. Pardon my implements of getting the job done. I am so happy with this project. I cannot tell you how wonderful it feels to see this finished walkway, something I'd envisioned for so long. and so welcoming. It's not a manicured, picture-perfect landscape by any means. I hope you like it as much as I do. Why don't you let me know what you think?